you're up.
Good morning. This is not on.
You gotta turn it on.
Oh, I turned it on.
All right. Hi, you're on.
There we go. Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today for the first Roseville Business Council of 2023, including our people who are viewing on the live stream. So we appreciate you all being here today. Before we get started, I'd just like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who make all this program possible. We've got Visit Roseville, Highway Credit Union, and McGough. So thank you.
And a special shout out to Sahil Taneja. Sunil Taneja, thank you so much for providing the bakery and the fuel to get this meeting going. Appreciate it. Inaugural meeting here at Roseville Business Council in January, and Sahil, who's the franchise owner at Dunkin' here in Roseville, donated the product for us to enjoy today. So thank you, Sahil. Appreciate it. I'm John Connolly, president of the Twin Cities North Chamber of Commerce, and let's start the meeting by going around the room and having everyone introduce themselves. I'm going to give you the microphone, so just pass it along to the next guest. But first announcement is that there is a survey that Roseville's doing. It's called Envision Roseville. And Mayor, when he gets to his part, is going to go into more detail about that. But I just want you to be aware that this is an important survey that the city of Roseville wants to do, and it's to envision what Roseville can be like down the road in the future. More details from our mayor coming up. And now, let's start with Robin.
Good morning, I'm Robin. I'm with Lancer Catering and Como Zoo. Just doing announcements today.
Sounds good.
And I'm Ed Stadnetsky with AIRS, Mechanical, Electrical, Civil, Structural Engineers.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Weiland with Clear Channel Outdoor.
Good morning, I'm Angela Wisely with the Doubletree Roseville.
Good morning, I'm Gina Gurung Baumhoff. I'm the owner of a new boutique here in Roseville called Namaste Brows and Boutique.
Hi, I'm Trish Waldock. I'm owner of Hidden Minnesota, the escape room axe throwing, star throwing event space venue in Roseville.
The axe throwing, right?
Yes.
Good morning, Maureen Daly with Highway Credit Union.
Morning, Sahil Taneja, local Roseville resident and the Dunkin' franchisee over here.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Hodowanek, also with Highway Credit Union.
Good morning, Pat Trudgeon, City Manager for Roseville. Welcome to Roseville.
Good morning, Janice Gunlock, Community Development Director for Roseville.
Good morning, everyone. Beth Bridal, St. Paul Area Chamber.
Good morning, everyone. Mary Jo McGuire, County Commissioner for Ramsey County, also Roseville resident, and I represent Roseville, Little Canada, New Brighton, and Lauderdale. And I love these meetings. I always learn so much about new things that are going on in the area, so thank you for having these.
Hi, everyone. Kate Dewin, aide to Commissioner McGuire.
Great job. Good morning. My name is Julie Wern, and I'm with Visit Roseville.
I'm Jana King with Economic Development Services, and I'm working with Roseville on the Envision Roseville project.
And I'm Mayor Rowe, the mayor of Roseville, and as you know, I have this great anticipated announcement later on.
Try to tee it up more.
Morning, everybody. My name is John Letourneau. I am the newest team member for Twin Cities North Chamber. My responsibility will be to lead an effort supporting local manufacturing. Super excited to be here.
I'm Deb Nygaard with Arthur's Senior Care.
Good morning. My name is Elvi Rekic. I'm the owner of Kitchens Made Simple.
Awesome. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us this morning. And now let's get to our program. We have Grow Minnesota here today, led by Vicki Stute of the Minnesota Chamber's team. They are the premier economic development program focused on retaining and growing Minnesota businesses. Grow Minnesota strives to help businesses overcome challenges, make new connections, and grow in any part of the state. Working with Grow Minnesota means access to economic data, insights, as the state moves forward toward economic recovery, and access to Minnesota-based suppliers on a number of products and services that can help your company grow. Pleased to welcome Vicki. Vicki, welcome. You can use this or right there.
I'll come up here then.
Perfect.
So, wonderful. Thank you so much, John, for the kind introduction and the opportunity to speak to all of you here in Roseville. This is a thrill to see so many people in the audience, live and in person, so early in the morning in this early part of the new year. So, welcome. I have the opportunity to work for the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. I've been with the Minnesota Chamber for about 5 years, but I also, throughout my career, have worked with local chambers of commerce across the state, including St. Paul. So this is a great opportunity to see a couple of chambers in action, bringing our business community together here in Roseville. Today I'm going to share a little bit more with you about the Minnesota Chamber, talk a little bit about the economic outlook for the state as a whole, and really the one thing we hear from all of our companies is those workforce realities and how that can continue to impact our growth. We have an agenda for the economic growth throughout the state, which can apply very much towards directly into Roseville as well. I'm going to share a little bit more about Grow Minnesota itself as a business retention and expansion program and how we can help serve you. And then a bit about the programs and services, because we know that businesses are always looking for ways to grow, reduce cost, and also manage the risk. So chambers of commerce, if you don't know specifically what a chamber of commerce is, about 150 years ago, was really intended to be really the magicians of Main Street. That's what we were called. We're very community-centric. We're problem solvers, and we're about creating economic opportunity. And so whether it's a local chamber or a state chamber, it's what we do. We're separate organizations, but we often work together. And Twin Cities North and St. Paul are great partners of ours in that effort. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce itself has been around for about 114 years. I love this photograph because it depicts when we started on the one side and what downtown St. Paul looked like, and you know, fast forward 114 years and how things have changed, but in many ways, how they really, in many ways, have remained the same for what local and state chambers do. We have about 2,300 members statewide and represent over 500,000 employees. About 40% of our membership is in Greater Minnesota and 60% is in the metro area. So we really find ourselves constantly trying to balance the interests of both Greater Minnesota and the metro area, but probably even more important, how we represent our businesses, the companies that are even represented here in this room. Through introductions, you heard the diversity of the type of companies that are represented this morning, manufacturers and finance and insurance and hospitality. And that really is what is important about Minnesota, is that we have such a diverse economy. We, like the local chambers, probably represent more businesses with small companies, because that's really where the makeup of companies are in Minnesota. With over 75% of our members are being small businesses, really the backbone of our economy. And of course, the industry makeup, as you can see, professional services and manufacturing make up more than, nearly 60%, more than 60% of the representation of the type of companies that are engaged. We really also focus our efforts in 3 different areas. We are your voice for the business community at the Capitol. We try to connect you to be able to develop and grow your business. And then the opportunity to grow is really what I'm here to talk about today, in terms of, again, those programs and those products and services to help support local business efforts. We also have a foundation as part of the Minnesota Chamber that does a lot of research and data collection. And I want to start out today to kind of level set the conversation around our state and our economy. A number, probably, 4 years ago, pre-pandemic, our foundation went forward with an economic study to really take a look at what Minnesota will be come 2030. And we're in the process of updating a lot of that data, post-pandemic, as we like to say. But really, we looked at the characteristics of Minnesota as a high developing economy in terms of the high value, the per capita income, our GDP per capita. We know that we're a very hardworking state here in Minnesota. Have an educated and skilled workforce. We're very innovative. Minnesota is the 6th and most patents per capita in the United States, so very entrepreneurial. We're a corporate hub. We're very fortunate that we have 16 Fortune 500 headquarters here in Minnesota with a high concentration of professional services, the diversity of our economy in terms of our jobs, very important. And then, of course, those key industry clusters. At the same time, for all the great things that Minnesota has, we've also seen some opportunities for improvements, including our GDP. It's slowing more than the rest of the country, which can be concerning to us in terms of those headwinds and really what's happening. And we're also trailing, obviously, post-pandemic. So we're not catching up in terms of our GDP output and growth. The 4 factors that we've determined that are slowing Minnesota's economic growth, obviously, is the slowing labor force and our population growth. And I'll talk maybe a little bit more about that. The U.S. regional trends and the concentration in the Sun Belt and the competition that it creates for Minnesota. We're trailing in the tech growth sector and slow productivity growth following national trends as well. So our unemployment rate, I know a lot of these are headlines that you'll hear and read about. We're at 2.5% as of December in 2022. And we haven't seen that number since around 1999. And that certainly really impacts every one of you in terms of being able to find qualified talent for your companies. So it's become even more important to find opportunities to retain the top talent that you have. What's even more concerning, perhaps, is our labor force participation rate is declining. We were very proud at one point in terms of we had a very high labor participation rate here in Minnesota, and now we're just kind of continuing to tick downwards. So we have to identify what are the reasons why people are leaving the workforce. Is it the baby boomers that are retiring? Is it the pandemic that created a change in our labor force and people are just staying home more? And then as important is what can we do to get them back into the workforce and really find those other niches of individuals that aren't working with us today. The good news is the new business applications surged during the pandemic. So again, that entrepreneurial spirit continues to thrive here in Minnesota, and we continue to see increasing numbers. But that also obviously impacts our workforce, right? If we have a lower labor participation rate, it's because maybe some of those entrepreneurs are leaving as employees and they're starting their own companies. So there's always a balance in play. So I talked a little bit about some of these things in terms of what we're seeing. The good news is Minnesota's population will continue to become more diverse with all of the state's net population growth coming from populations of color. So while that creates some challenges, it also creates some opportunities for us to be able to continue to cultivate that workforce. And then, of course, employment is projected to shift to healthcare, technology, and service-related industries, while productivity growth will drive output gains in other industries as well. Short-term forecasting humility is important for us. We'll continue to build on our strengths. Our aging population means that we'll continue to see a period of labor force growth. We had the state demographer at one of our meetings back in December, and she talked about the workforce challenges and the slowing labor participation rate and the retirements, and said to us, this is as good as the workforce gets at this point in time. It's only going to get more challenging. So this is where, again, the innovation here in Minnesota is required in terms of how do companies perhaps automate, how do they upskill, how do they create those gaps within the workforce. Community assets and economic inclusion will be top priorities. And of course, again, innovation and entrepreneurship. These are all opportunities for us to focus on and meet some of these challenges. Our long-term forecast, population and labor force growth will continue to slow, constraining job growth, employment shifts, as I mentioned, and again, virtually all of our net population growth in the coming decades will be from populations of color. So Grow Minnesota and what Grow Minnesota is specifically and how it relates to some of the data that I've shared with you from our foundation. The program itself was created about 20 years ago. Actually, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary, and it was an opportunity for our business leaders to go out and say thank you for doing business in Minnesota. We heard from businesses that they just weren't hearing from our legislative leaders, our business leaders, about the importance of businesses here in Minnesota and the contributions that businesses and business owners make to our economy. So the Minnesota Chamber, in partnership with 27 local chambers, started this effort. Fast forward today, 20 years later, we have over 90 local partners that are actively engaged in Grow Minnesota. And more specifically for 2023, we're going back to our roots and really looking at business retention and expansion and what we can do to provide business assistance to these companies so that they can continue to grow and be vital within our economy. Since the inception of the program, we've completed more than 13,000 visits, and really business assistance has become the cornerstone of the program. We've been very focused. Actually, prior to the pandemic, we went through a strategic planning process with our partners and really determined that the visits and the data that we collect is super important, but the follow-up and the assistance and the resources that we can deliver to those companies, both in terms of opportunities and challenges, is probably even more important. So we're really focused on the follow-up with companies and the companies that we visit and share, and I think we learned a lot through the pandemic. The visits stopped during the pandemic for those 2 years, but the business assistance accelerated. And so today we're really focused on meeting the needs of those companies really on a one-on-one basis. And of course, the data is important. The data we collect is confidential, but it's aggregated and it helps shape our policy and our programs to be able to represent businesses. You know, why business retention and expansion? Minnesota is really fortunate in terms of its entrepreneurship. Homegrown businesses and startups expansions in the state, 87%. That's an extremely high number compared to other states here in our nation. And we want to make sure that what we're doing is continuing to create those opportunities and grow those homegrown startups. Our economic insights tell us who's expanding, who's at risk of moving, closing, or downsizing. We're seeing companies perhaps not leave Minnesota. There's a few, there's always a handful in the headlines that you read. But what we're finding right now is the companies are expanding elsewhere. They're not necessarily creating that second or third location in Minnesota. They're moving where there's perhaps a better business climate in certain situations, or maybe there's closer to their customers and their suppliers, or they're moving because they can find a talented workforce because of the low employment rate and the labor participation rate here in Minnesota. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. It's telling me I'm talking too much here. Also, a key component is, as I mentioned, the business assistance. Our team, and I know the local chamber teams that are focused on working with businesses, have the knowledge to either understand and can communicate the information, or they have the resources to make those connections. So financing, exporting resources, workforce partnerships, and the resources around supporting those companies to find new opportunities and new people within their recruitment process. Supplier connections and startup resources is really where we're focused at in terms of delivering those resources for companies of all shapes and sizes. Our tailored strategy, of course, the supply chain exporting workforce. Housing has become really important, so that's really kind of a new focused effort, not only in Grow Minnesota, but in our policy efforts, as well as childcare. Not listed in here, but probably just as important, because we find that that is a barrier to workforce for many families. Our targeted sector and cluster strategy is still in play, and then of course the focus on startups. So I also, from a data standpoint, probably not as scientific as what our foundation provides, but we learn a lot from our Grow Minnesota visits through those one-on-one conversations with businesses like yourself. And we focus on maybe some different areas besides just workforce and GDP, but here on this slide you can see more businesses right now are reporting increased costs than their revenue. You'll see that those costs are increasing over last year, 71% versus 91%. That's an area of concern for us in terms of how can we help continue to control costs while companies are increasing their revenue. You'll also see rising costs obviously are driving down that profitability. So margins are becoming constrained for companies. And again, this isn't specific to a specific industry or size or location. It's an aggregated across Minnesota. We're finding, of course, not surprising, 81% of the people that we're meeting with have difficulty in hiring and recruiting. And I would also suggest that they're unable to retain those employees, because we're finding, at least in some sectors, that they're kind of trading employees. One employee was at ABC Manufacturing, and now they're at the other manufacturer that's located in that community, and there's a lot of competition that's being created on the local level. But despite the headwinds, businesses continue to invest and plan for growth. We hear that 56% are planning new capital investments. 56% are expected to add jobs in the next 12 months. I think the caveat there is if they can find the workers to do that. 73% expect increased revenue growth over the next 12 months. So not everything is dire, certainly. There's opportunities everywhere. We also like to share those anecdotes that really isn't the scientific, but it's more of the qualitative conversation that we have. And these are just some different statements that we're hearing from companies. They suggest we still have a full pipeline of projects for the next 3 to 6 months, but we're not sure where things look like otherwise. That comes from a manufacturer in Greater Minnesota. They're able to plan on the short term, but not long-term trajectory. The county's unemployment rate is less than 2%. We're competing with other manufacturers. Our ability to find anyone is really limited. And we do some automation opportunities for a new product line. Hard to make cash flow because the payoff period is super long. And with increasing interest rates, the question is, will that continue to constrain growth in terms of capital investment? And then, of course, how that trickles into the other growth. And then we hear kind of these other kind of statements about uncertainty and what's happening. And we were told, you know what, the economy is really weird right now. My whole business, I'm just feeling really weird about that. So I don't know what we can do to make the weirdness, different, but that's a truth that many of our businesses are facing. They just don't really kind of know what to expect. Some of the other services that the Minnesota Chamber provides through Grow Minnesota and its program, of course, I talked about the assistance, the business solutions that we can offer. We do have available on our websites the economic data insights and trends and some of the information that I shared, including our 2030 projects. So if you want to dig more into that's available online for you. We offer a number of digital resources for companies. Our Minnesota Supplier Match program has been around for a few years, and that's the opportunity for a business to identify local suppliers here in the state of Minnesota, because we know that speed to market can help decrease costs and also continue to help other Minnesota companies grow. So if you're looking for, a specific company that might be an original manufacturer of a chip, as an example, That database will share more information about those type of companies, who those companies are, and the contact information. So it's a great referral resource. Our local economic development consultancy, so if you have a challenge in your company, we can work with you specifically kind of one-on-one at a deeper level. Our partnership connectivity, super important, those 90 chambers, economic development organizations, including Roseville here, are partners of ours, and they're really the kind of the boots on the ground to work with these companies. And then, of course, visits, tours, and outreach. We love coming into companies, learning more about what you're doing, your opportunities and challenges, and just kind of why you started here in Minnesota and the decisions that you're making for your company. We also have at the Chamber a couple of other programs that are focused on sustainability efforts and helping companies not only create opportunities in terms of sustainability, but help reduce costs in the process. So WasteWise has been around for, gosh, I would say nearly 25 years, and we help companies reduce their waste. We're able to provide education to employees, make suggestions about how you can reduce and recycle and compost, because we know that there are taxes within the metro area on garbage, and if you can reduce your garbage and shift it to other areas and still do good in the environment, you're going to save money on some of your business costs. Our sister program is our Energy Smart program, where we'll go in and provide an energy audit, make recommendations to companies in terms of their energy. It could be everything from heating and cooling to just changing out light bulbs. And both programs offer grants to help companies implement those changes and save some money in the long run. So if you're interested in either of those programs, I'm happy to connect you with one of my team members to share more about that as well. And then finally, Minnesota Chamber Business Services is an affiliate of the Minnesota Chamber, and we provide a variety of products and services to help companies grow and manage risk. We've been selling insurance through an agent-broker partnership for, gosh, more than 50 years. We have a business insurance line, everything from general liability, workers' compensation, business owner's policy, to employee benefits. Group life, short and long-term disability, dental and vision is available. Chamber Health, which I'm going to share more about because it's our newest program that we just launched. And then we have other products for small businesses, a pooled employee retirement plan. We sell labor law posters, transcription services, salary benchmarks for compensation for your recruitment and your retention. And then we work with manufacturers that export around our Certificate of Origin program. These are all of the partners that we work with. So we have a wide array of partners, usually not just one partner in each category, so that we can create competition and bring the greatest value to our businesses that can help reduce premium costs and provide some features and benefits typically not available to small businesses. And Chamber Health, as I mentioned, is our newest program. It's our health insurance program. And the reason that we developed Chamber Health is because we heard for many years from companies of the increasing costs of health insurance year over year. I'm sure some of you here today saw double-digit increases for your employee benefits for your employees. And we know that it's super important, obviously, with the workforce challenges, that recruiting and retaining talent is super important. So employee benefits are a piece of that in terms of how you can encourage the top talent to come work for you. Businesses have asked for an alternative in the marketplace. Increasing competition in insurance markets and risk management, all important. And we hear that over the next couple of years, those increasing costs will continue. So what is Chamber Health? We believe it's an innovative and affordable health insurance platform that was specifically designed for small and mid-sized companies. We have 2 unique programs that are offered to companies in Minnesota. Eligibility includes at least 2 full-time eligible employees. You have to call Minnesota home for your company, and you have to hold a membership in the Minnesota Chamber. The caveat to that is we have some special programs with local chambers where they can provide chamber membership into the Minnesota Chamber for free if you're a member of that local chamber. And I know Twin Cities North is one of those. So if you're a company with 10 or less employees, you automatically get membership into the Minnesota Chamber, and you then therefore get access to these products and services. We utilize an open broker network and an agency, so we're not the ones selling it. We're just there to help develop the product and provide customer service. So you work with your own insurance agent that you've already established your business with. And then, of course, enrollment is available on the 1st of each month. Chamber Health by Medica is an association health plan. And basically, association health plans take small companies and they pull them into one major category or company. So it acts like a very large company like Target or General Mills, so that you can access those lower costs in terms of your premiums, and then also access the special features and benefits around that health insurance and those special employee programs that you wouldn't maybe have access to as a small business otherwise. Medica offers within the association health plan 8 different plan designs and 7 different networks, so it's statewide opportunity. It's for groups of 2 to 100, that's our target, but again, it can be quoted for any size company. And the pilot program for 2023 is in 3 specific industries: manufacturing, professional, scientific, and technical services, and then the finance and insurance industry. Association health plans are regulated by the state of Minnesota, so chambers can't offer the breadth of all industries. We have to be very specific on the industries that we do offer, but we're hoping that this has become something that's so competitive that we can continue to increase those areas in those industries through vertical association health plans and expand in that area. The other program is offered through United Healthcare. So again, 2 different offerings, creating competition even amongst our partners. This is a level funded plan, which is fairly new to Minnesota's marketplace, but it offers immediate discount savings, and level funded plans don't require companies to pay for on taxes and fees. So there's some savings there for you right immediately as well. You can also save on your premiums if you're bundling some of your employee benefits. And this is for 200 to 300 employees. So again, keeping in mind those are for small businesses. So what can you do as a business if you're interested in chamber health? I would again recommend, talk with the local chamber, contact me, connect with your local broker. They should be able to work with their agency relationship managers at Medica or United Healthcare to begin the quoting process. We've seen upwards of 25% savings for some of the companies that are part of Chamber Health as compared to what their quotes were otherwise for 2023. So we're super excited about the opportunity that this is going to create to again continue to decrease costs for businesses. And so with that, lots of information, but I'm happy to take any questions and appreciate your interest today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Vicki, for sharing a boatload of information, not just on the demographics, the business climate, and forecasts and things like that, but some of the benefits of your chamber membership, whether you're a member of St. Paul or Twin Cities North. So thanks so much. Appreciate it. Just in looking at the benefit package, I'll start out the questions here. Which benefit do you think is the most used one by some of the small businesses? Is it the insurance products, or is it the white papers you do? Tell us more about that.
We've had the benefits. I think overall, Grow Minnesota is probably the most widely used. It's been around, as I mentioned, for 20 years. It's statewide. It connects in with those local chambers and economic development organizations. So it's really that grassroots opportunity to create the business resources and the assistance, especially during some of the challenging times, right? Certainly, we work with companies in our sustainability programs. This past year, we worked with about 1,200 companies within Energy Smart and WasteWise. We're continuing to help grow or hope that we can grow within those insurance areas because we see that those are some direct, tangible costs that we can save companies as well. So.
Right, yeah, those operational costs with WasteWise, Energy Smart,
Yeah.
and then the administrative costs with some of the products you're offering are giving a true benefit to the membership. So, like to open it up to the floor. Who has got a question? Let's go, Ed, start us out.
All right, thank you, Vicki. I appreciate you coming. Is it too early for the chamber to kind of do an assessment of what's happening at the Capitol and say, is that a headwind or a tailwind?
Well, the policy is not my area of expertise, but I've been working for Chambers of Commerce for about 30 years. So I have a little bit of experience and have some great colleagues that I work with. And we are concerned for the business community of what the 2023 legislature is creating. We know that there's some really important bills out there. We know that businesses are looking to create new opportunities for recruitment and retention of their employees. But we feel like we're going too far on many of those measures. If you look at Governor Walz's budget that he rolled out yesterday, it's a 25% increase in spending for the state of Minnesota, of which many of those spending increases are taxes, increasing taxes, new taxes, and probably more specifically on businesses. Those taxes also come on individuals in certain areas, but if you're a business and you're a subcorp or an LLC, your income is flowing through your personal income tax statements. And so that's a direct hit for you as not only an individual, but a business owner. And, you know, we feel like many of those current proposals that are being heard and moving very swiftly in the legislature are going too far.
Other questions? Oh, other questions? I've got actually one follow-up question. There's been a lot of investment through the flow of ARPA funds through a lot of counties and cities, and maybe you can comment on this, Commissioner McGuire. But you know, a lot of those funds were used to prime, you know, businesses and so forth. What have you seen in the marketplace from some of these ARPA investments? Because you'd mentioned housing, you'd mentioned other things that communities as well as counties and the state are doing with those ARPA funds. Can you share any insights into that?
You know, we, in many ways, I would say it might be just a little too early to be able to understand the long-term implications of what those funds will do and what they'll look like. We want to ensure that there's some really sound benchmarks in terms of how the money is being spent and that the progress that is or isn't being made is measurable. So, you know, certainly it was an important piece of what happened during the pandemic and how we move forward. But I think being very strategic in terms of how those funds are being spent will be very different in each of the different communities as well, because the challenges that might be Roseville might be facing might be very different than Fergus Falls or Mankato. So.
Yeah, and any comments on that, Commissioner McGuire or Kate?
So Commissioner McGuire,
hold on.
Had to duck out, but I can just say, yeah, this is a really great question. I think, you know, for Ramsey County, we're really proud of the investments that were made with ARPA dollars into workforce development. including our Right Track Plus program, which helps young people move towards careers that are meaningful to them and are also fitting into the gaps that our community is seeing in hiring, as well as our Early Childhood Academy, which is looking at those child care workforce gaps that affect all workers. So yeah, I think those are some good examples, and it's something that we're definitely thinking about and that Commissioner McGuire is very focused on.
Pat, anything on the city ARPA funds that you'd wanted to share real quick?
Yeah, we have limited funds, compared to the county, but we try to invest in small businesses and help them with some grant programs and loan programs and assistance, especially in small businesses, to help them get on social media, make sure get the word out. So I think we've had some good success on that, but that of course is limited by the dollars, and you can't help everybody. So we hope that that will be a start for other businesses to continue to partner with the city and the county when necessary to help their business. We want to see them grow. I think what we heard constantly was lack of employees is the biggest thing. So it's one thing to help support the business, the financial model, but if they can't find workers to make it work, it's going to be really difficult. So.
Thank you. All right. Mark, you had a comment or question.
Something came to mind, just out of curiosity. I was, obviously we all know the nice synergy that exists between the Twin Cities North Chamber, St. Paul Chamber, and I'm just wondering if at a statewide level, do you interact with or learn from other state chambers and incorporate that into what you do?
We do. The Minnesota Chamber is active in the Council of State Chambers. It's a national organization where all 50 state chambers come together a few times a year, and we are able to compare and talk with our peers across the United States about what's happening in their states and what's working and what isn't working and so forth. So we like the local chambers, have a great national network that we work with as well.
Super. Okay. Well, any last question? Last question. Oh, okay. Great.
I have kind of a general informational question, maybe for chambers, maybe for you. And it's kind of a, where would I find this resource type question? So during the pandemic, we had the shutdowns to help protect community health, of course. And during the second shutdown, those of us that were, said we need to shut down during the second time direct aid will be provided. That makes a significant impact to decisions that business owners make. The problem is that a lot of the decisions were based on NAICS codes, which are not as current as they could be and take a really long time to update. So places like me, indoor entertainment, that's not a bowling alley and not a theater, we're kind of other. So even though we're told, shut down, we're going to give you direct aid, then we don't get any direct aid because we don't fall into the specific categories. When reaching out to the state, the county, hey, where do we go? How do we get this aid that we're supposed to be promised? The response I got was, too bad. So my question is, where do we go when we are that exception? Because we don't have a specific NAICS code because that escape rooms, that stuff's not updated. Shuttered venue grant was specifically for places that have seating in theaters, so we didn't qualify for that. And I just want to know where we would go that we are not going to be told, too bad for you.
Question.
Do you want to take that?
Well, I'll give it a shot. I'll give it my best shot because I'm not a tax code guru or anything. But you are in one of those positions where when I'm filling out some forms for our local chamber as an association nonprofit, I sometimes find ourselves we don't fall into various categories or get lumped in with another category. So I think the best thing to do is connect with me, connect with your local chamber, and then I can then pass along to the bodies that make those decisions and hopefully influence them into considering, hey, we have a business here. They're unclassed. they are impacted. They were told this. They were told to qualify. Now they can't. Now they're told no. How can we get them reclassed, or how can we make this work to expand that classification? Because it wasn't right that you were in that category.
There were a lot of escape rooms that closed during the pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't doubt it. A lot entertainment in a broad segment. Yeah. You could have said, you know, it's interesting. Professional sports teams are classified as entertainment. So all their venues were lumped into there. Like you said, a movie theater, it would class them. So any retail store like yours hopefully would be classed in that. So I wish I had a better answer, but the best thing to do is reach out to some partners. Just try not to go it alone maybe, and get some partners along the way. And then by coming at it in different directions, hopefully you get some resolve.
Yeah, I might add to that. If you have an association that you work with, a trade association of other like-minded companies, quite often that can be most effective to band together. I would contact your local legislator and share your story as well. They need to hear that you have that challenge and you haven't been classified as you should have been, because they can also create change and work with the Department of Trade and Economic Development as well. But John or I are happy to help you.
Absolutely. So, all right, and now let's hand it off to Mayor Rowe. Where is Mayor Rowe? Okay, Mayor Rowe, your turn. Sure. No.
I probably don't need it, but for posterity.
No, you need it because of the audio feed.
Right. Well, a couple of things I just wanted to say too is if part of the issue, if it is related to the federal government too, certainly our senators' offices and Congressman McCollum's office could be helpful as well. But I agree in reaching out to the chamber for that kind of help, because they definitely can get you connected with the people that can help solve the problem. So just wanted to add that. So Envision Roseville is our effort to update, and I think I mentioned this at previous business councils, but for those who have heard it before, you'll just have to put up with it again. But it's our effort to update our community vision, which is really what helps guide our decision making as a local government for the next, say, 20 years or more. And we did this last in 2005, 2006, and developed a series of aspirations, and then tied that to goals and objectives. And really what we're doing this time around is trying to update the aspirations and make sure the things that we want to be as a community are right and reflect where we're at. Things like being safe and law-abiding, things about being economically prosperous, things about being healthy in body, mind, and spirit, and things like that, and engaged with each other. Those are the aspirations, the things we want to be. The thing we're also trying to do this time around is make sure that we get feedback as to what are the things that we can measure going forward that can give us an indication of whether we're achieving those aspirations. And that's something we feel that we can get a benefit from hearing from the public about and helping us to develop those. And then as the local government, we can then take that information and start to put together strategies and plans to get towards those aspirations and achieve what we want. And certainly we're always on the path towards achievement, but it helps to definitely put together a more concrete plan that can address areas where we're maybe falling short, for example, and things like that. So what Jana was just handing out and what's available on the table outside is information on a specific outreach effort, which is to do a survey to receive input from local businesses, because certainly we're trying to get all the voices involved, whether it's residents who are the usual folks who always show up for everything, or residents who are the folks who don't even know that we as a local government exist, or are just too busy with their daily lives to do this normally, and we're trying to figure out ways to reach out to them. But certainly the business community is a key part of our community, a very significant contributor to local property taxes. Thank you very much. And we want to make sure that your voices are part of the process as well. So the survey can be accessed through the link. There's a QR code. I'll hold up the QR code. You can just scan it, right? But no, it's available on the sheet. I'm imagining there's a link on the Grow Roseville website as well, and there's also what's known as Envision Roseville is the name of the process. So I imagine if you even Googled Envision Roseville, you might get to the right page and kind of get a link to the survey there. And if you can't, because I've made that promise, now somebody's going to be feverishly working on that right after this. But it's key that we hear from everybody, and so I want to make sure and encourage folks to participate. And if it isn't through this survey, definitely look at ways that you can engage in our visioning process. We hope to sort of put things together this year over the course of the next few months here so that we can start into that strategic planning process as the next step. So once again, I want to encourage everybody, whether it's specifically through this survey, which we absolutely want you to do, but through any other way that you can plug into our visioning efforts or anything else we're doing as a community, we always want to encourage our businesses to do that.
All right.
I'll add just one thing. In the survey, there's an opportunity for you to indicate that you're willing to participate in a focus group. We're going to get the survey results first and take a look at those, and then we're going to develop some deeper questions and deeper dialogue with a smaller group of businesses in focus groups. So if you're inclined, that will take a little bit more of your time, but we'd love to get deeper so we can give the mayor the kinds of metrics he's hoping to have to move forward.
Well, if I think you offer Duncan and the bakery and the coffee, I think you might get some folks. Yeah, right, Sahil? Yes. Okay. Alyssa?
All right. Thank you, Vicki, for being here with us this morning. We're so appreciative of the work that the Minnesota Chamber does for the business community to help us advance our work. Also, thank you to our sponsors, Visit Roseville, Highway Credit Union, and McGough, for your support. They make it possible for us to all gather every month and talk about these important topics. So thank you again.
All right, Alyssa. And once again, thank you on behalf of the Twin Cities North Chamber to Duncan Sahil for providing the hospitality, for the production team on the backside. We're streaming this, and so that's a new thing that we wanted to feature so that folks can join us that way too as well. And then especially to Vicki for sharing your story about all the benefits and ways that they can connect to the Chamber and the resources available too. Also, just a reminder, John Letourneau's here to stick around. If you have or know of a manufacturer that has issues or concerns or wants to connect with other stakeholders in the area, John's here to talk about that. So please join us on February 22nd for Mayor Rowe's State of the City. And we're going to join us here in person at the council chambers or online, and registration is going to be open and can be accessed on our website, twincitiesnorth.org, or the St. Paul Area Chamber's website too as well. Everyone, we'll see you next month. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate it.